Hello, I'm Joanne Phoenix, and I'm here today to talk about my story. And the reason for that is I want to show people that it's possible to live in the truth of who you are, no matter what you're doing now, no matter where you are, no matter what you think about yourself. So, the last 3 years have been quite a journey for me, a journey of self-discovery, coming to myself, coming to my heart, and coming to my soul. And it's only 3.5 years ago that I was living a life so different to that, so not in alignment with myself. So to explain, 3, 4 years ago, I was married. I'd had a great marriage. There was nothing wrong with the marriage. I was living in a nice big house. I had 2 grown-up children, had a job with a 6-figure salary. And from the outside, my life looked absolutely perfect. And yet on the inside, it didn't feel that way. And I thought something was wrong with me. For many years, I thought something was wrong with me. So I would always strive for more. And it didn't matter. My thing was clothes. It didn't matter how many clothes I bought, how much money I earned, how many miles I ran, whatever I did, nothing seemed to make me feel better. I lived with this kind of constant ache in my stomach. And what I would do would be strive for more, strive for more, strive for more. So at the time I would train for triathlons and my times were never quick enough. I would strive to get that new best time. I would buy nice clothes and feel in those clothes wonderful, and then want more clothes and more clothes and more clothes. And no matter what I did, nothing seemed to work. I was plugged into the matrix, so to speak, where I was looking externally outside of myself, something that could never fulfill myself within. So to explain how I got there, I was brought up in England in a town called Sheffield, or a city called Sheffield. And my parents really loved me. And at the same time, I had a very traumatic childhood. And included in that, my mum was schizophrenic. I witnessed many things and I experienced lots of different ways of trauma in my childhood. And then as I grew up, the thing I wanted was I wanted a boyfriend, and then I wanted to get married, then I wanted children. And I would dream about having this great job and living this kind of powerful life. And I went to college, I became a hairdresser, then I had a hairdressing salon. Then I met my husband and I closed my hairdressing salon down, became a salesperson, moved to where he lived, and just strived to become the best. When I was a salesperson, it was never good enough for me not to be number one. I just wanted to be number one, wanted to be number one, wanted to be number one. And that was my driving force. And I was always looking for recognition. Each year, I would want to win awards, and I would always seek that external validation out with myself. And my husband and I were we wanted the nice house, we wanted the nice cars. When we got a nice house, we wanted the bigger house. We went on to have children. And of course, I went back to work when they were quite young. To keep up that lifestyle, I needed to work, and we wanted holidays. And there's nothing wrong with that, nothing at all, except for I was not looking internally. And then over the years, I changed jobs. It was always sales, always wanting to be number one, always wanted to be recognized, always wanting to make more money. And I would be very, very busy. So every minute of my day was taken up with something to do. So My husband worked away from home, and at one stage I was looking after the household, looking after 2 children, doing a job that was actually more than full-time, a job that required me to pull out the laptop in the evening and do extra work. And part of that really was avoidance of myself, avoidance of looking at myself, something to distract me. And then over the years, I got into triathlons and transferred that very same energy over to that. So, like I said already, I was never fast enough at running. Nothing was ever good enough. Nothing I did was good enough for myself. No matter how much I had, it was never enough for myself. And from the outside, I'm 100% sure that people would have thought that I had everything and that my life was happy. And as I said before, deep down inside, I wasn't. And over the years, I went to the doctors. I took medication for anti-anxiety. And I just kept going and kept going and kept going until one day, roughly around about 3.5 years ago, I was working with somebody and she recognized that I wasn't happy. I just wasn't myself. So she encouraged me. She encouraged me at that time. I was a rep working on the road, selling products to dentists. And she encouraged me that time to go and see a professional. So I did. And when I arrived at this room with this professional, she said to me, "So why are you here, Joanne?" And I said, and I still laugh about this to this day, I said, "There's 45 people in my team at work. I am number 5 and I want to be number 1. And I said that I had an addiction to chocolate and I would like some help with that addiction." So at the time I was eating a box of chocolates every day, and I'd been doing that for about 10 years. And there was a kind of embarrassment around that because it wasn't alcoholism or on drugs. And yet that was so similar. That was my way of coping. So I ended up spending 2 years with that psychotherapist. I went there for 2 years, and that was quite a journey of self-discovery. She did something called person-centered therapy, and she helped me get in touch with myself and understand who I was. And when I first walked into that room, I had no clue who I was, not at all. I was living this life that I perceived would make me happy. So I was following the matrix, so to speak. I was doing what consumerism was telling me was going to make me happy. And it really wasn't working at all. So over the next 2 years, as I say, I went on this journey of self-discovery. I discovered I was nothing what I was making myself be. And I had a defining moment. One day, we were in the dining room, and my husband and I were entertaining a couple. They were with us for the weekend, and they were almost exactly 10 years older than us, very similar to us. And I was watching over the weekend how that's where my life was heading. And there was nothing wrong with their lifestyle. I liked their lifestyle. The thing was that it wasn't in tune with me. It wasn't in tune with my heart. And my husband he was a great cook, and he brought this perfect steak into the dining room. He presented this steak, and everybody was saying how wonderful it looked, and we were all getting enthusiastic about eating this steak. And I had kind of an out-of-body experience. So what happened was I carried on interacting and I carried on entertaining with people, and there was part of me stood outside of myself. And that part of me was looking at myself and going, "What are you doing, Joanne? This isn't who you are. You're being an actress on a movie set, and this is not who you really are." And that moment was a really, really, really significant moment for me. What unfolded after that was the understanding that I couldn't carry on the way I was anymore. I would look at my husband and think, I'm not the person that you thought you married. I'm not who you think I am. And I'm not sure we match anymore. And that's nobody's fault. I'd molded with the trauma from my childhood. I'd kind of clung on to him, and I'd molded and shaped myself and changed myself so that I fit into that stereotype, into that lifestyle. And I knew I couldn't carry on like that anymore. So I started becoming more the truth of myself. And over time, my husband and I decided to split. We did it consciously. We didn't go down the whole solicitor route and have the big battles. Of course, we had our moments and we had our arguments. And to this day, we're still speaking. So we didn't do that whole thing. And then after that, we came to sell the house. It took a year and a half to sell. And we went into lockdown, and I found myself coming more and more inside myself, asking questions about myself. And it was at that point that I was furloughed from work, and I did a coaching diploma. And boy, did I fall in love with coaching. It was like, I found myself, I found what I'm here to do. And I'd been really successful at my job, and I'd really enjoyed that over the years. And it was time for me to move on. I'd actually found what I actually loved. And looking back now, I resisted that. I stayed in that job another, how long? I would say another year and a few months. And I resisted that. And that's what we tend to do. So I went on this journey and was coaching people, and they were getting results, and really enjoyed it, really enjoyed embodying myself. And what I discovered was that when we move towards what we prefer, we come face to face with that which is in the way of us and that. And that's what I'll do my next video about. I'll explain that in more detail. So what happened was, I'd finished with the psychotherapist. I was moving more towards what I wanted, and the emotions were starting to come up, and I was coming face to face with fear, sadness, and different things that were going on with me. Once the house sold, I didn't want to buy another house. I wasn't quite sure where my journey was going. I wanted to surrender. I'd found my spiritual side. I wanted to live more in the flow of life. And I decided to put my furniture in storage, set off around Wales in the UK, and just go in Airbnbs. And that was fine with where I worked. They were happy during that time for me to, I was back at work part-time, and they were happy during that time for me to work remotely. So that was perfect. So I took on a coach as well to coach me, because I really do believe that when we are coaches, we should be coached as well. So I took him on, and he has been so incredible over the last year, in that I had so many emotions arise which were born of the trauma I experienced during childhood. And he has mentored me and held the space for me and helped me get through that. And I've learned what he does as well, and I'm now incorporating that into my coaching. So I set her off around Wales, and had a very interesting month. I did the coast of Wales. I visited a beach every day. I spent a lot of that time crying. And you may think, well, that wasn't you living a better life. And in actual fact, it was. That was me allowing myself to cry, to come to myself, to heal. And again, I'll go to this more in another video, but we have trapped energy in our body from trauma that we've experienced. It doesn't matter if you've had the perfect childhood. It doesn't matter. You will have experienced trauma and have emotions that may want to arise. So that was my month in Wales. I arrived in England. My daughter had gone to Plymouth, which is on the south coast of England, to university. And my plan was to visit her for a week, go around the south coast of England, back up the other side and back to Scotland. And I arrived in Plymouth, and after a week, our Boris, lovely Boris, decided to lock us down, and immediately overnight I became homeless. Airbnbs closed down and I couldn't go back to my home. It had sold, and I found myself with nowhere to live. And what I've learned now is to trust. At the time I didn't. I, to put it mildly, freaked out, went into a whole trauma response and didn't know what to do. And what actually happened was I decided to go and pack my car. I was walking to the left of the building I was in, and without going into great detail, a man was coming up into the lift. I bumped into him, we had a conversation, and he found me somewhere to live. So now I've learned that we're safe, we're looked after, and everything will be okay. So what happened then was I stayed in that area. I found myself living in 3 different places. And again, I came more and more to myself, got to know myself more. And when it came time, I started off in Scotland. And when it came time to go back to Scotland, I just knew deep in my soul that that's not where I wanted to be. And so I phoned my manager up and I told him that I couldn't live in Scotland, that I can't do this. And for me, there was so much fear arising in doing that. A year before, I'd envisioned myself living on the south coast of England, never thought it would never happen. And here I was saying I can't live in Scotland, still not knowing that that could happen. And what happened was the people that I was working for, I went back to Scotland to work for a few months, and they relocated me to the south coast of England. So what I learned through that is anything's possible. That was a dream the year before, and anything's possible. So fast forward now, around about, that was in July, and I've since resigned from my job. I have decided to follow really fully and surrender what is deep within me, to live the full truth of myself. I understood that staying on that path in my job wasn't in alignment with me at all. Every day I was opening up the laptop and forcing myself to do something that was no longer in alignment with me. At one time it was, at one time I loved that job, and it wasn't resonating with me before. And this is taking so much trust and surrender. And at every step, I am finding that I am safe, I am looked after, I can surrender, this is possible. And this is not what we're taught. We're taught through our upbringing, we go to school, we're taught that we must get a job. If we got great grades, we're then given the professions that we should go into. So I worked in the dental industry. One of those professions is dentists, solicitors, lawyers, doctors, accountants, chartered surveyors. And we get on this matrix, and some people love that matrix. And some people, what I'm observing more and more, are they think they're trapped there. They think they're in that box, and they think that there's no other way out. And I used to call this the money trap. And now what I understand is it's not only a job that provides money for us, we are abundance. And it really is possible for us to live in the truth of who we are, doing the very things that resonate with our souls, doing the very things that a creative, we don't have to live that way. And even in those jobs, we can become and be more of the truth that we are. And so the reason I'm starting this series of videos and podcasts is I want people who are ready to step into that, to step into everything they are, to see that it's possible. I'm showing that this is possible. And I'm happy to put my story out there. I'm happy to coach people that want to be coached. You can find me on Facebook under Joanne Phoenix, YouTube channel under Joanne Phoenix, Instagram under Mama Jo Phoenix. Come and talk to me, have these conversations with me. I'm going to start a group called Conscious Conversations in a few weeks. That will be on a Monday evening. You can come and have a chat with me. That'll be a subscription model. And let's live in the absolute truth that we are. So here I am. I don't take any medication anymore. I still have emotions. I cry. I laugh. I have anger arising. I do get triggered. I live as a human being, and I do not have that ache, that yearning, that pain that was always there before. And I live as who I am. I live in alignment with my soul, as I call it. So yeah, that's my story. I'm going to start a series of videos and bring up different topics, different techniques that I've used to get me here, things that I've learned along the way. And it's my wish that we all live in a society where we get to be free, and we get to be ourselves, and we get to be individuals. We get to not be that stereotype that conforms. We get to be the truth of who we are. So thank you for listening. I look forward to communicating more, and I love you.